The Kingdom of Silver Fang had not known war for 6 long years. The once scarred villages that had been rebuilt under Alpha King Zevian's rule now flourished with life. Merchants traveled freely between neighboring kingdoms. Children laughed through the cobbled streets without fear, and the towering palace overlooking the capital had become a symbol of hope instead of power alone. Whenever visitors spoke of Silver Fang, they rarely mentioned its wealth or military strength first. Instead, they spoke of its king and queen. People often said that the strength of the kingdom did not come from Zevian's sword. It came from the unwavering trust between Zevian and Nyra. Unlike many rulers who allowed the weight of the crown to separate them from those they loved, Zevian had never stopped treating Nyra as the woman who had captured his heart long before she became queen. Every evening, no matter how exhausting the royal council had been, he walked with her through the western gardens. Every morning, they shared breakfast before either of them attended their duties. To the servants, it had become a tradition. To the people, it had become a symbol. Hundreds of silver roses bloomed beside the crystal lake, filling the air with a gentle fragrance. Nyra sat beneath the ancient willow tree with several scrolls spread across a small stone table. She wasn't reading poetry. She was reviewing requests from villages affected by the previous winter. A few roofs needed rebuilding. A bridge near the southern river had collapsed. Several orphaned children required permanent homes. She carefully wrote notes beside each report. "If we approve this one today," a familiar voice interrupted her, "you'll probably approve every request before lunch." Nyra smiled without looking up. "You were supposed to be in the council chamber." "I escaped." She finally lifted her eyes. King Zevian stood before her, wearing simple black royal clothing instead of his ceremonial armor. His cloak rested casually across one shoulder, and despite the responsibilities waiting for him inside the palace, he looked remarkably relaxed. Nyra raised an eyebrow. "The generals allowed that?" "They don't know." She laughed. "So the mighty Alpha King abandoned his own meeting?" "I delegated." "You mean you disappeared?" "I preferred delegated." Nyra shook her head, while trying not to laugh. "If General Ronan finds you, he'll give me another lecture." "Probably." Zevian walked behind her chair before gently placing both hands on her shoulders. "What are you working on?" She showed him the reports. The villages. He leaned down to read them. "You've already solved half their problems. There are people." "I know. And if they sleep safely?" She smiled. "So will I." Zevian looked at her with quiet admiration. "You always remind me what being a ruler truly means." Nyra reached for his hand. "And you remind me that I don't have to carry everything alone." For a moment, neither spoke. The breeze carried flower petals across the lake, while birds sang from the ancient willow above them. The peace surrounding them felt almost unreal. Later that afternoon, the palace gates suddenly opened. A group of exhausted royal guards rode into the courtyard at full speed. Their horses were covered in mud. Several soldiers carried visible wounds. General Ronan immediately hurried toward them. "What happened?" One of the captains climbed down from his horse. "We found someone." Ronan frowned. "Someone? In Blackwood Forest? Bandits?" The captain shook his head. "A young woman. Was she attacked?" "We don't know." Another guard carefully lifted an unconscious woman from one of the wagons. She appeared no older than 24. Her elegant white dress had been torn by branches. Small cuts covered her hands. Her long dark hair was tangled from traveling through the forest. Most unusual of all, around her wrist rested an ancient silver bracelet engraved with a royal crest that no one recognized. Ronan studied it carefully. "I've never seen that symbol before." Neither had anyone else. Word quickly reached the palace. Zevian and Nyra arrived together at the royal infirmary only minutes later. The palace physician gently examined the unconscious woman, while several attendants cleaned her injuries. "Will she survive?" Nyra asked. The physician nodded. "Yes. She isn't seriously injured." "Then why hasn't she awakened?" The elderly physician sighed. "Extreme exhaustion. And—" he hesitated. "There are signs she may have suffered severe emotional trauma." Zevian looked toward the sleeping stranger. "Can she tell us who she is?" "I'm afraid not. She hasn't spoken a single word." Nyra quietly approached the bedside. The young woman's face looked peaceful, despite the scratches across her cheeks. She seemed lost, almost as though she had wandered alone for countless days. Suddenly, the woman's fingers twitched. Then, still asleep, she whispered something, so softly that everyone leaned closer. One word, one name: Zevian. The room instantly became silent. Nyra slowly turned toward her husband. Zevian looked just as confused. "Did she?" Nyra asked quietly. "Just say your name?" Before he could answer, the young woman whispered it again. "Zevian." Then tears slowly rolled down her face, even though she was still asleep. The physician looked completely puzzled. "Does your majesty know her?" Zevian shook his head immediately. "I've never seen this woman before." Nyra searched his eyes carefully. She believed him, without question. Because if there was one thing she knew better than anyone, it was when Zevian was telling the truth. Yet one mystery remained. If they had never met, why was a complete stranger whispering the Alpha King's name in her sleep? Hidden among the towering oak trees, a cloaked figure watched the palace through a small brass telescope. The figure smiled beneath the hood. "The first piece has reached the board. The game has finally begun." The mysterious woman remained unconscious throughout the night. The palace physician refused to leave her side, checking her pulse every hour, while attendants quietly changed the cool cloth resting across her forehead. Although her injuries were only minor, something deeper troubled him. Her body showed signs of extreme exhaustion. Her hands were covered with old scars. Not the scars of battle, the scars of someone who had spent years running, climbing, hiding, and surviving. Whoever she was, life had shown her very little kindness. The following morning, the palace slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Servants polished the marble corridors. Royal guards changed shifts. Council members hurried toward another day of meetings. Yet, the conversation throughout the palace centered on only one thing: the unknown woman. Some believed she was a noble from another kingdom. Others whispered she might be a spy. A few even suggested she had been sent to assassinate the Alpha King. No one truly knew. Inside the infirmary, Nyra quietly entered, carrying a small basket filled with fresh fruit and herbs. The attendants immediately bowed. "My queen." She smiled warmly. "How is our guest?" The physician sighed. "She awakened briefly during the night." Nyra looked hopeful. No. No. She seemed frightened. She asked where she was. And after I told her she was safe, the physician looked genuinely saddened. She began apologizing. For what? I don't know. She simply kept saying, "I'm sorry. I don't remember." Nyra slowly walked toward the bed. The young woman was awake now. Her deep brown eyes quietly followed Nyra as she approached. They weren't filled with fear, only confusion. Nyra smiled gently. "Good morning." The young woman hesitated. "Good morning. My name is Nyra." The stranger lowered her head respectfully. She frowned. "I wish I could tell you mine." Nyra pulled a chair beside the bed. You don't remember? She slowly shook her head. No. My name, my family, Don, P. She looked completely heartbroken. It's all gone. Nyra reached for her hand. Then don't force yourself. We'll help you remember, for the first time. A faint smile appeared on the young woman's face. A short while later, Zevian entered the room. The moment the young woman saw him, everything changed. Her breathing stopped. Her eyes widened. Tears immediately filled them. Without warning, she stood from the bed. You, she whispered. Zevian looked puzzled. Have we met? She stared at him for several seconds before slowly shaking her head. I don't know. Her voice trembled. But, she placed a hand over her heart. She's seeing you. It hurts. Everyone in the room became silent. What do you mean? Zevian asked gently. She closed her eyes. I don't remember your face. I don't remember your voice. But somehow, my heart recognizes you. Tears rolled down her cheeks again, and I don't know why. The palace physician carefully helped her sit back down. Don't push yourself. He looked toward Zevian. I believe strong emotional memories sometimes survive, even when ordinary memories disappear. Nyra listened carefully. So she may not remember people, but her emotions remain. Exactly. Yet, it answered nothing. Why would this complete stranger feel such overwhelming emotion upon seeing the Alpha King? Later that afternoon, General Ronan entered carrying several ancient books borrowed from the royal archives. I may have found something. He placed the heavy books across a nearby table. About the bracelet? Ronan nodded. I searched every royal record we own. He carefully opened one of the oldest books. Inside were illustrations of forgotten royal families dating back hundreds of years. After turning several pages, he stopped. There. Everyone leaned closer. Drawn upon the page was the exact same silver bracelet. Nyra looked toward the caption beneath it. House Valeris, the Kingdom of Donmir. Zevian frowned. I've never heard of Donmir. Ronan nodded. Very few people have. It disappeared nearly 25 years ago. What happened? No one knows. The kingdom simply vanished. The room became completely silent. That evening, the mysterious woman stood alone on the palace balcony overlooking the capital. She watched children playing in the streets below. Couples walked through the evening market. Musicians filled the air with cheerful melodies. Everything looked peaceful. Yet inside her mind, nothing made sense. She couldn't remember her own reflection. She didn't know why she feared thunderstorms. She didn't know why seeing the Alpha King made her want to cry. She felt empty. Soft footsteps approached. Nyra quietly joined her. It's beautiful, isn't it? The young woman nodded. I've never seen a city like this. Nyra smiled. Perhaps you have. You simply can't remember. The woman looked toward the horizon. Do you think memories ever come back? I do. What if they don't? Nyra gently placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Then we'll make new ones. The stranger looked at her with surprise. You trust me? Nyra answered without hesitation. Yes. You don't even know who I am. No. But I know kindness when I see it. The young woman's eyes filled with tears once more. I don't deserve this. Nyra smiled softly. None of us deserve kindness. That's why it's a gift. For the first time since arriving at the palace, the mysterious woman smiled. A genuine smile. Far away, hidden inside an abandoned watchtower overlooking the kingdom, two cloaked figures watched the palace through a magical crystal. One of them laughed quietly. The queen is even more compassionate than we expected. The other nodded. which means she'll never suspect the truth. The memories, they're beginning to stir. The first figure smiled coldly. Not yet. He reached into a small wooden box. Inside rested a tiny glass vial filled with shimmering silver liquid. She'll remember exactly what we want her to remember. Lightning flashed outside the tower. Thunder rolled across the distant mountains. And inside the palace, the mysterious woman suddenly collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. Fragments of forgotten memories burst through her mind. A burning castle, a crying child, a silver crown, someone shouting, "Run!" And one final image, a young boy standing beside her. His face remained hidden, but around his neck hung the exact same wolf pendant that Alpha King Zevian still wore today. The vision vanished. She gasped for breath. What was that? The palace physician arrived within moments. By the time he entered the balcony, the mysterious woman had already regained consciousness, but her breathing remained uneven. Tiny beads of sweat covered her forehead as she sat trembling in the chair Nyra had quickly pulled beside her. "Easy," the physician said gently. "Take slow breaths." She obeyed, though her hands continued to shake. Nyra knelt beside her. What happened? The young woman stared into the distance, as though trying to hold on to something slipping away. She pressed both hands against her temples. "I saw fire." "What else?" "A castle. People were screaming." She closed her eyes tightly. There was so much smoke, and, she hesitated, "I saw a little boy." Zevian immediately stepped forward. "What did he look like?" "I couldn't see his face." She looked frustrated. "It was hidden." But, her voice became barely audible, "He wore a silver wolf pendant." Without thinking, Zevian instinctively touched the pendant hanging around his own neck. Nyra noticed. So did Ronan. No one spoke. The physician eventually asked everyone except Nyra to leave the room so the young woman could rest. Outside the chamber, Ronan folded his arms. "That pendant." Zevian nodded. "I know. There are only 3 like it. My father's, mine, and," Ronan finished quietly, "the one that disappeared 25 years ago." Zevian looked toward the window. "My father told me it had been stolen." Ronan shook his head slowly. "Maybe. Or maybe someone lied." That evening, Nyra personally served dinner inside the guest chamber. She had insisted the young woman should not eat alone. The attendants quietly withdrew, leaving only the 2 women. For several minutes, neither spoke. Finally, the stranger smiled apologetically. "I keep causing trouble." Nyra laughed softly. "You've been here 2 days. You're already apologizing like you've lived in this palace for years." The woman lowered her eyes. "I don't remember who I was, but I know I must have disappointed many people." Nyra looked at her carefully. "Why do you believe that?" "Because," the woman searched for the right words, "my heart feels guilty, as if I failed someone." Nyra reached across the table and gently placed her hand over hers. "Memory can disappear. Character doesn't." The woman looked confused. "What do you mean?" "The way you speak. The way you thank every servant. The way you apologized after fainting instead of asking for help." Nyra smiled warmly. "Those things tell me far more about you than your missing memories." The young woman's eyes filled with tears again. "No one has ever spoken to me like that." Nyra smiled. "Perhaps they simply forgot to." Days slowly passed. The mysterious woman remained inside the palace, while physicians searched for a way to restore her memories. Although she still remembered almost nothing about her past, she began helping wherever she could. She read to elderly servants whose eyesight had faded. She helped organize medical supplies. She spent afternoons playing with orphan children visiting the palace. Before long, nearly everyone in the palace admired her gentle heart. Only one mystery refused to disappear. Every time she walked through certain parts of the palace, she stopped, as though recognizing something. One afternoon, while walking beside Nyra through the eastern corridor, she suddenly froze. "This wall." Nyra looked puzzled. "What about it?" The woman slowly approached the stone wall. Without thinking, she placed her hand against one particular stone. A faint click echoed. The entire wall shifted. Hidden behind it, a narrow staircase descended into darkness. Nyra stared in astonishment. A secret passage. Several nearby guards rushed over. General Ronan arrived only moments later. He examined the moving wall carefully before looking toward Zevian. "This passage hasn't appeared in decades." Zevian frowned. Only members of the royal family knew it existed. Everyone slowly turned toward the mysterious woman. She looked completely horrified. "I didn't know, I swear. My hand just—" She looked at the wall in disbelief. Moved by itself. The discovery spread quietly among the palace officials. No announcement was made. Yet whispers returned. How could she know royal secrets? Could she truly be connected to the king? Inside the servants' quarters, the rumors became even more dramatic. "I heard she grew up in the palace." "No. I heard she's the king's forgotten love." Someone said she's actually a princess. Rumors traveled faster than facts. By morning, even merchants in the capital had begun repeating them. Nyra pretended not to notice, but she did. Every whisper reached her ears. Every curious glance followed her through the palace. Still, she refused to allow gossip to control her heart, because she trusted Zevian completely. Yet something else had quietly begun changing. Zevian now spent long hours with the mysterious woman, not because he wanted to, because every strange discovery seemed connected to her missing memories. He questioned historians, visited ancient archives, compared forgotten maps, searched through royal records. Some evenings, he missed his usual walk through the western gardens. Nyra never complained. She simply waited. One evening, she sat alone beside the crystal lake. The willow branches swayed gently above her as the sun slowly disappeared beyond the mountains. She looked toward the empty path. This was the third evening Zevian hadn't come. She smiled sadly. "I suppose you're still working." She didn't feel angry, only lonely. Someone watched her. The cloaked figure quietly smiled. "The distance has begun." Another cloaked voice whispered, "Should we continue?" The first figure nodded. "Not yet. Love doesn't break in one day. It breaks one missed moment at a time." The two figures disappeared into the darkness. Far away, inside the royal archives, Zevian suddenly uncovered a weathered portrait hidden between two ancient books. Dust covered the frame. He carefully wiped it away. The portrait showed the royal family of the long-lost kingdom of Dawnmere. An elegant king, a smiling queen, and between them, a little girl wearing the same silver bracelet now resting on the mysterious woman's wrist. Zevian's heartbeat quickened. Then he noticed something else. Standing beside the royal family was a young boy. Around his neck hung a silver wolf pendant, the very same pendant he had worn since childhood. For several seconds, Zevian simply stared at the portrait. The old canvas had faded with time, and the edges were worn from years of neglect, but the faces remained clear enough to recognize. The little girl, the silver bracelet, the royal family of Dawnmere, and beside them, a young boy wearing the same wolf pendant that rested around Zevian's neck. His heart began to race. "This isn't possible," he whispered. Ronan stepped closer. "What is it?" Without speaking, Zevian handed him the portrait. Ronan studied it carefully. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The pendant, Zevian nodded slowly. It's identical. Ronan looked from the painting to the pendant around Zevian's neck. I thought your father commissioned that pendant when you were 10. So did I. Silence filled the archive. If the portrait had truly been painted over 25 years ago, then someone had lied to Zevian for most of his life. That evening, the palace librarian searched through the oldest royal records until he finally uncovered a sealed journal belonging to Zevian's late father. The leather cover had nearly fallen apart. Dust covered every page. It had not been opened in years. Zevian carefully broke the faded wax seal. The first pages described ordinary matters of state: harvests, trade agreements, military reports. Nothing unusual. Then, near the middle of the journal, a single sentence made him stop breathing. Today I sent Prince Zevian away for his own safety. Zevian frowned. Prince? He had always believed he had grown up inside Silver Fang Palace. He continued reading. If the enemy discovers both children survived, he stopped again. Both children? His hands trembled. What children? Before he could continue, the archive doors suddenly opened. A royal guard hurried inside. My king. What is it? The mysterious lady has awakened, screaming. She keeps asking for you. Moments later, Zevian and Ronan rushed into the palace infirmary. Nyra was already there. The young woman sat upright in bed, breathing heavily. Her face was pale. Tears streamed down her cheeks. The moment she saw Zevian, she stood, then whispered 2 words that froze everyone in the room. Big brother. Complete silence. No one moved, not even Zevian. The woman blinked several times. Confusion slowly replaced certainty. What? She pressed both hands against her head. I don't understand. She looked terrified. I know that's what I called you, but I don't know why. Then she collapsed into tears once again. The physician quickly examined her. It was another memory, but only a fragment. Zevian slowly sat beside the bed. What else do you remember? She squeezed her eyes shut. There was a garden. You were teaching me how to climb a tree. She laughed weakly through her tears. I kept falling. And, you told me? She looked directly into his eyes. A true wolf always gets back up. Zevian's heart skipped. He had heard those words before. Many times. His father had repeated that sentence throughout his childhood. No one else should have known it. Later that night, Nyra quietly entered the palace chapel. She needed silence, not because she doubted Zevian, because everything had become so confusing. She lit a single candle before the moon goddess. I trust him, she whispered. I truly do. But, she looked toward the stained glass windows. Why does every answer create another question? Soft footsteps echoed behind her. She turned. It was Zevian. He looked exhausted. I've been looking everywhere for you. Nyra smiled gently. I needed a little quiet. He walked beside her. I'm sorry. For what? I've barely spoken to you these past few days. You've been trying to help her. I know. But that doesn't change the fact that I've neglected you. Nyra looked at him for a long moment, then smiled. You haven't neglected me. You've been carrying a burden. And burdens become lighter when they're shared. Zevian lowered his head. I should have remembered that. She gently reached for his hand. We've always faced difficult days together. This shouldn't be any different. He looked into her eyes. I don't deserve you. She laughed softly. That's fortunate, because you're keeping me. For the first time in days, Zevian laughed. The weight on his shoulders eased slightly. The following morning, the mysterious woman wandered through the palace gardens with one of the attendants. She still couldn't remember her name, but strange flashes of memory continued appearing without warning. As she passed the old willow tree, she suddenly stopped. I've been here before. The attendant smiled politely. You arrived only a few days ago. She slowly shook her head. No, as a child. Without thinking, she walked toward a weathered stone bench hidden beneath the branches, then knelt beside it. Her fingers brushed away years of moss. Beneath it, 2 small initials had been carved into the stone. Z.A. She stared at them. Tears quietly filled her eyes. I know this. I carved this. The attendant frowned. What does it mean? The young woman whispered almost unconsciously. Zevian and Aria. The name echoed across the garden. She gasped. Aria. She placed both hands over her mouth. Is that my name? At that exact moment, hidden behind the ancient willow tree, the cloaked mastermind watched everything unfold. A slow smile spread beneath the hood. The memories are returning faster than expected. Another cloaked figure appeared beside him. Should we stop her? The mastermind shook his head. No. Let her remember. He looked toward the palace. Because once she remembers everything, she'll also remember. Lie that will destroy Zevian. The mastermind quietly disappeared into the forest, leaving behind only the sound of rustling leaves. Far away, storm clouds slowly gathered over Silver Fang. The greatest truth of all was finally about to be revealed. Storm clouds covered the skies above Silver Fang throughout the night. Lightning flashed beyond the mountains, while heavy rain fell against the palace windows. Almost no one slept peacefully. Not Zevian, not Nyra, and certainly not the young woman who had finally remembered one thing. Her name. Aria. Yet with that single memory came dozens of others. Broken, incomplete, like shattered pieces of a mirror scattered across the floor. She remembered a castle, a garden, a little boy laughing beside her, someone carrying her through smoke. Then, nothing. Before sunrise, Aria quietly left her room. She followed instinct instead of memory. Her feet carried her through corridors she somehow recognized, past forgotten staircases, through an abandoned hallway, until she reached the oldest tower in the palace. There, hidden beneath loose stones, she found a tiny wooden box. It looked untouched for decades. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside rested 2 small wooden wolves. One had the letter Z carved beneath it. The other. She stared at them in silence, then suddenly remembered. A little boy smiling. When we grow up, we'll protect everyone together. She had carved the wolves. He had hidden them. Tears rolled down her face. They were real. At that exact moment, Zevian entered the tower. He had followed the guards after learning Aria had disappeared from her room. When he saw the wooden wolves in her hands, his expression changed. My father, he whispered. He made those for me. Aria slowly looked up. I remember. You gave me the smaller one because I cried when mine broke. The memories rushed back all at once. A summer afternoon. 2 children running through palace gardens, one wearing a wolf pendant, the other a silver bracelet. Then, fire, screaming, soldiers, someone shouting, take the prince, protect the princess. Everything became clear. Aria fell to her knees. I remember everything. The royal council assembled immediately. Every senior noble filled the chamber. Nyra stood beside Zevian. Aria quietly stepped forward. My name, she began, is Princess Aria of Dawnmere. The room fell silent. My father and King Rowan of Silver Fang were brothers. Gasps echoed throughout the chamber. My uncle? Zevian asked quietly. Aria nodded. When our kingdoms were attacked, they separated us. You were taken to Silver Fang. I was taken to Dawnmere. Our families believed the other child had died. Ronan slowly sat down. So, you really are family. Aria smiled through tears. My cousin. She looked toward Zevian. You've been my family all along. The truth should have brought peace. Instead, the council doors burst open. A wounded royal guard stumbled inside. My king, the northern gate, it's under attack. General Ronan immediately drew his sword. By whom? The guard struggled to breathe. The Black Raven Legion. Every face changed. No army had dared attack Silver Fang in years. They've breached the outer wall. Within minutes, the palace became a battlefield. Arrows filled the sky. Citizens hurried toward shelters. Royal guards defended every entrance. Zevian stood at the front of the palace steps, wearing his battle armor. Beside him stood Ronan, General Aldrit, and, to everyone's surprise, Nyra. She wore light ceremonial armor instead of a royal gown. Zevian looked at her. You should stay inside. I've heard that before, and every time, I've ignored you. He laughed despite the danger. I should have expected that. The enemy commander finally rode into view, a tall man dressed in black armor. Across his finger rested a silver ring, the Ring of Thorns. Aria's expression turned pale. It's him, the man who destroyed Dawnmere. The commander removed his helmet. Lord Cedric, a nobleman who had served neighboring kingdoms for years. No one had ever suspected him. He smiled coldly. You remember me? Aria nodded. You murdered my parents. Cedric laughed. I murdered kings. I murdered queens. I erased kingdoms. And today, I erase Silver Fang. The battle began. Thousands of soldiers clashed outside the palace. Steel rang through the air. War cries echoed across the valley. Cedric fought like a man who had spent decades preparing for this day. He cut through soldiers with terrifying precision, until Zevian stepped in front of him. You'll go no farther. Cedric smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Their swords collided with explosive force. The duel pushed them across the palace courtyard. Every strike sent sparks into the air. Neither man gave ground. Meanwhile, another assassin slipped toward Aria. Before she noticed, Nyra stepped between them. The assassin swung his blade. Nyra blocked it with her own sword before driving him backward. Aria stared. You saved me. Nyra smiled. Your family. That's what family does. At the center of the battlefield, Cedric suddenly gained the upper hand. His sword slipped past Zevian's defense. For a brief moment, everything seemed lost. Then, Aria remembered something. The left side, she shouted. He injured his shoulder years ago. Cedric's eyes widened. Zevian reacted instantly. He feinted high, then struck low. Cedric instinctively protected his shoulder, exactly as Aria predicted. It left his sword exposed. With one powerful movement, Zevian disarmed him. Cedric's weapon flew across the courtyard. Royal guards surrounded him immediately. The battle ended. Several weeks later, peace finally returned. Cedric and the surviving conspirators were imprisoned. The stolen wealth of Dawnmere was recovered. Neighboring kingdoms united under a lasting peace treaty. Aria was officially crowned Queen of the restored Kingdom of Dawnmere. Before leaving Silver Fang, she stood beside the old willow tree with Zevian and Nyra. I almost destroyed everything, she whispered. If Nyra hadn't trusted me, I would have remained lost forever. You never came between us. You helped us discover the truth. Aria hugged her tightly. I'll never forget your kindness. That evening, the palace gardens looked exactly as they had years before. The crystal lake reflected the moon. Silver roses swayed gently in the evening breeze. Zevian and Nyra walked together in silence. Finally, He stopped beneath the ancient willow tree. "I owe you an apology." Nyra looked at him. "For what?" "I became so focused on solving Aria's mystery. I forgot to walk beside the person who has always walked beside me." Nyra smiled softly. "I knew you'd find your way back." He gently took both of her hands. "I never chose another woman over you. I only forgot that I should have searched for the truth with you by my side." A tear rolled down Nyra's cheek. She laughed through it. "That's the husband I know." He wrapped his arms around her. "I'm done making that mistake." She rested her head against his chest. "I know." High above them, the full moon shone brightly over Silver Fang. For the first time in many years, every kingdom on the continent stood united. Aria ruled Dawnmere with wisdom, and the story of Alpha King Zevian and Queen Nyra became a legend told for generations. Not because they never faced trials, but because every trial taught them the same lesson. True love isn't proven by never facing distance. It's proven by always finding your way back to each other. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another emotional adventure with King Zevian and Queen Nyra. Leave a comment below and tell us, when did you realize Aria was family, not a rival? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.